Well, welcome, everybody, once again to another segment of Lewis at Large. Yours truly, Warner Lewis from the Flight Deck, and always happy to have you here. Another segment of Smart Talk Radio's in your future, and this one is certainly no exception. An old friend of this show. Boy, I'm not sure she's my favorite person, but she's certainly in top 5 of all time in my entire life. Gray Drake is her name. She has been a filmmaker. She's been a writer. She has been producer. She's run the camera herself. She's also been a film critic. She is currently the senior editor of RottenTomatoes.com. We will get more into that later. She is residing in the lovely state of California. The last time we talked, she was sitting on a deck with a nice cup of coffee. I don't know that to be true, but Gray, how are you, my friend?
Oh, I'm doing good. It's so good to be back.
Indeed it is. You hail originally from the state of Colorado, now living in California. Either one, not too bad.
Right. They're both lovely places. I enjoy going back home for the holidays, etc., visiting family.
Let's describe again for our Lewis at Large listeners. Tell us about RottenTomatoes.com and again, your move there just a while back.
Yeah, I've been there less than a year, and Rotten Tomatoes, I've been a fan since it started in '99, and what they do is they have a stable of approved critics, and these are people who have proven themselves to have, integrity in the industry for whatever reason. If it's a lot of traffic to their website, if it's it's sort of a mix of all of these things, like a large audience, consistency, quality of reviews, etc. And so we have a whole bunch of critics that contribute to our site, and they give movies a score. And that score figures into the big tomato meter, which is a percentage of positive reviews that a film has gotten. So, for instance, Fast and the Furious 6, that has come out and earned a ton of money that could help our country out with their debt. If they would be so kind. No, that movie is 75% fresh on the tomato meter.
What about let's throw a couple movies at you. What about Hangover 3?
That one did really poorly. On the tomato meter, it's been hovering around 21% rotten.
Did that? I saw that recently. I have to admit, I kind of agree with that. It was It almost appeared to be a cartoon of itself, of its former self.
Yeah. The problem with the Hangover sequels is that they just should never have existed. The Hangover, the first movie, was so good, so funny, so legendary, I think, in the genre of comedy movies. But it was based on a gimmick and should never have been continued. Because all you're looking for as the audience is the magic of that first one. You're chasing the dragon, man, and they've just never gotten there. They tried to mimic the first one in the second one, and it failed horribly. It was terrible and insulting. And then this one, they did the exact opposite, took those characters a completely different place, made more of a drama action movie than anything else. And it wasn't funny, so it didn't feel like a Hangover movie at all anyway. And kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. Nice folks involved with that film, but it's something that makes doing interviews a little awkward.
There's several movies I want to ask you about, but and have you wear your critic's hat a little bit. But I want to explore a little bit, but just Hollywood in general right now. You've been hanging around there for a long time. You're well known. I know you don't feel probably immersed up on Mulholland Drive that much, but certainly in your role at Rotten Tomatoes and others. Is the industry changing just since you've been in L.A.?
Oh, absolutely. It's always changing. It's resisting it, but it's changing. There's so many things that are contributing to a different landscape in movies that it's actually quite a broad topic. I mean, there are a lot of ways that it's changing. You've got streaming platforms changing the way that movies get distributed, giving people opportunities they wouldn't have had otherwise. You've got people's movie habits and their movie-going habits changing, so that's forcing, all the distributors and things like that to think differently. And digital versus film, I mean, there's so many things that are going on.
What about and I'm referencing this because recently I saw a preview for Fast and Furious in the theater, and one of the things they addressed specifically is a film this great can't be seen and appreciated on a screen this size, and of course they reduce it down to the size of a television, a direct acknowledgement of what's happening. But do you believe that other media, other than going to that environment of a theater and the large screen and the whole sensory experience there, will that ever truly be replaced?
No, absolutely not. But statistically, yes. Because I think that the average American sees about 5 movies in a theater per year. A lot of things contribute to that figure, time, cost, other people's manners, and also, when you've got it in your house, it's big enough as a television set. Everybody's got a good-sized TV these days, and you can watch a movie in your jammies without dealing with other people, and you can pause for a bathroom break. Why not? Plus, it doesn't cost you $100 for your whole family to sit and watch something. So, I personally, as a movie nerd, 100% believe that some movies are only meant to be seen in that large format. It's like Lawrence of Arabia, for instance, a 70-millimeter film, one of the most gorgeous movies of all time, seen on a television is nothing like what it is on a huge screen in 70-millimeter. But do people care about that anymore? Statistically, no.
I'm curious. Well, okay, let's follow that up. And by the way, I completely agree with you. There is nothing like a tremendous movie in a movie theater. But the IMAX, as an example, in the same way that quadraphonic sound 30 years ago tried to be the new stereo, what I don't see, and correct me if I'm wrong, Gray, is new technology to make a screen bigger, or I know 3D is a pretty big deal, but am I missing something there? Am I just an old guy that's missing all of it?
What do you mean exactly?
Maybe that the screens are going to be different or bigger, or that you're going to be wearing headphones, it still seems like, it's not a criticism at all, that movie theaters for the most part are what they are a while back.
Yeah, I don't think they're really introducing a whole lot that's new to the experience. I think that now they're seeing that the numbers of the popularity of 3D movies are declining. I don't think this time around that 3D, which is probably the biggest, most important innovation that anybody's been able to institute, cinema-wide, country-wide, worldwide.
Right.
I don't think this time that it's going to go away, and for a couple of important reasons. The first being that China is one of the biggest movie consuming markets now, and so Hollywood is having to pay a lot of attention to them, and they want movies in 3D. The other reason is we now have 3D televisions, so people are going to be kind of continuing that 3D experience in their house. So that one is probably really the only thing that's had a huge impact. And there have been others, like certain theaters I know have been fitted with what they call D-box seats that are kind of linked to a hydraulic system that kind of puts you in the movie. They like rattle and turn.
It's like a ride.
It is. It's like a ride. And so certain movies like Fast and the Furious can be really enhanced by an experience like that. But the majority of them, it doesn't apply. So I don't really think that there's anything else people have been able to figure out to do. And at this point, I'm not sure that any gimmick is going to work in the long term, because ultimately no one goes outside. They always want to have their cell phones on. They want their iPads with them. And you can generally only do that without people screaming at you at home.
Right. Hey, again, if you just joined us, yours truly, Warner Lewis from the Flight Deck here at Lewis at Large Radio, an old friend of the show, Gray Drake. A well-known movie critic and just all-around movie buff from all angles, is with us. She's currently the senior editor at RottenTomatoes.com. Gray, I am curious. I want you to wear your critic's hat for just a minute here, and I'm curious as
I never take it off, Lewis.
Well, yeah, you probably don't. That probably gets you places too, though. That's good. Do you think the public reactive? As reactive to criticism or the words of movie critics as they always have been, or has your role changed, or the role of the critic rather changed?
I don't think people care about critics at all, unfortunately. I think that they enjoy reading discourse and talking about a movie. They like to disagree with people. They love to read well-written stuff and agree with people. But does it actually change anybody's opinion? I'm not sure that anybody has the same kind of influence that famous movie critics of yesterday had. I think there's so many of us, and there's so many places you can go. Do people actually influence? I mean, I've had people tell me, I think when they're trying to flatter me, that they will or won't see a movie based on what they hear me say about it, which is a lot of responsibility. But I'm not entirely positive that that's true for the general movie-going public. I think that our society has changed so much that we kind of don't really trust anybody. Like, we always question everything. We know that the news isn't the news, and, you know, commentary is always slanted, and we're kind of savvy consumers at this point, and we're much more likely to trust social media and the opinions of our friends and the opinions of people that we've chosen to follow. So, I mean, I guess I may be proving myself wrong just by saying that. Are people listening to critics? Well, maybe not the critics that get paid to criticize. Maybe they're listening to the critics who are their contemporaries, just their friends.
I'm curious then, therefore, when people see Gray Drake in your former life, Gray Drake movie critic, did the studios throw the red carpet out, or was it kind of like, no big deal?
No, studios hate critics.
Okay.
There are two worlds of journalism in the movie world. They're the critics, and they're the junket journalists. Now, although I do share my opinions in many different formats, you know, I still retain some sort of status as a critic. I have moved into the world of junket journalism, and what that means is junkets are when the studio rolls out the director or the cast of a movie, sits them down, and has people interview them. And that's how people get, you know, entertainment pieces. So that's a junket. And studios love the junket people because their only job is promotion. Junket people are not there to say, this is a good movie, this is a bad movie, see it or skip it. They don't say those things. Their only job is, oh my God, tell me more about your workout, Brad Pitt. Wow. So studios love them. So at Rotten Tomatoes, you can go to rottentomatoes.com/videos, and you can see all the work that I do over there, and I interview the folks from the movies, and which is a job that I adore, because it's all fun and games being a critic until you really hate something, and then, you know, the question becomes, well, like, how am I talking about this movie that may impact the actual person I'm talking about? You know, that's always a tough thing about a critic. So I love the interview side of it because, honestly, I just like talking to people and asking them questions. So it's really, that's a super fun experience, and they're the ones that get the red carpets rolled out for them. Free stuff, food, booze, travel, expenses, I mean, everything. These people this is definitely the better job of the two.
Yeah. Yeah, indeed. What, again, we're talking about movies in general. Are you pleased with what we'll call, I guess, the new breed or the newest breed of directors and producers?
I think it's kind of the same as it's always been. I think that there's some really amazing talent that's being supported by big studios, but the stuff that I find way more exciting is always the smaller stuff. The harder to find, more off the beaten path, kind of word of mouth stuff that I generally didn't even see coming. And I don't really, as much as I like to complain about Hollywood today and, everything's a remake, reboot, sequel, no original ideas, etc., I think that's always been the same. As long as I've been alive, it's definitely been similar. I've always had to hunt the stuff that makes the biggest impact on me. However, occasionally a big studio will make a film that just changes the way that I see movies. You know, it can happen from both sides, but you know, I'm more about the hunt.
Okay. Question. You have seen a lot in Hollywood. How is, and kind of in keeping with what we're just talking about, how does the older, we'll call them baby boomer generation directors, Steven Spielberg's and the baby boomer community, how are they blending with this new? Are they making way or are they hanging on?
I think it depends on who you're talking about for sure. I mean, Spielberg in particular, I don't like his newer things as consistently as I like his older movies. But you know, it's always you're only as good as your last film, right? Kind of.
Right.
So I don't know. I think that it's actually a tough question for me to answer because there's just such a vast number of people that fit into both categories. It's hard for me to make a generalization like that. Ultimately, I will say that I think the old school filmmakers who are aging, who are telling, I think the old school filmmakers that are aging are generally choosing safer things and making way for the younger, more exciting, fresher perspectives. And that's just kind of, again, the way that it's always been. So am I ever going to go on record as saying, like, oh, Scorsese's lost his edge? Absolutely not. Like, I would never say a thing like that, even though I like certain things more than others. But, you know, it's like Spielberg, we know what a Spielberg movie is. We know what that is. And it's not a bad thing. It makes gajillions of dollars at the box office. We still want to see it, but I also know what that means. So for me personally, especially being in a place where I see at least 3 movies a week, I prefer something that just comes out of nowhere, like a movie like The Raid Redemption on DVD right now that is Indonesian. I have no concept of who the filmmakers or the stars are, and it is such an insane action movie that I got just excited and so, like, flummoxed by the whole thing. I can't wait to see the dude's next movie.
Well, that's what I was going to, and I know we've only got a couple more minutes here, but real quickly, that's right where I wanted to head with this, and that was, should we expect to see more movies coming in, imported movies from other countries that make a real impact here?
Well, I think that now that we're paying more attention to streaming platforms, so more people are getting their movies from Netflix, from iTunes, from Hulu, whatever, I think that we have more accessibility to other things than ever before. And the thing that's going to make it a little bit easier for everybody is that Hollywood is so desperate to find things that already have a track record that they're starting to look to other countries more so. So yes, you know, it's going to be easier to see foreign things. But unless you are tuned to it, unless you care about it, it's, you know, you still aren't going to see it. You have to really dig and make sure that that's a focus of your movie watching, which I really support. I think that in a perfect world, we're all really hunting down movies that we've never heard of, that we can spread the word about, that we can use Twitter to talk about, that we can join the Facebook page for, and, you know, really just make movie going way more interesting. Because the reason that Hollywood has always produced the same old junk that ultimately is forgettable, even more so, I think, in the recent past than before, is just because we keep going. We keep giving them our money. If the stories don't make any sense, Hollywood doesn't care because you forked over $12 3 times to see it in the theater.
Right. Well,
you know, so we're the ones that dictate what happens.
Okay, real quick as we start to wind down here, I want to get your take on a couple of recent films and a couple of newer ones. Let's the obvious ones. Spielberg's Lincoln.
I loved Lincoln. I thought when I saw it that it was captivating, and I was really surprised. I was surprised at how funny it was, and I really loved the fact that they told that story, that this man that we've deified isn't perfect, because politics isn't perfect. The system isn't perfect. You know, people are imperfect. And so I thought Lincoln was fantastic, and I was really worried. I thought it was a little dry for the general movie-going public, and I was worried nobody would see it, and I was so happy that everybody proved me wrong. That one was definitely fresh on the tomato meter.
All right. What about Silver Linings?
Silver Linings, I got to see at a film festival before it came out. in theaters, and just after its premiere at the Toronto Film Festival. So I'd only heard whisperings of how much people like this film. And when I saw it in that movie theater at the film festival, the AFI Film Festival, the room was crackling with excitement, raucous laughter, huge energy. It's one of the most exciting ways to see a movie. I cried, I laughed. It affected me so much after I saw it. I was bananas for the movie. And I think it affected my perception of the movie a little bit, because now that everything's cooled off, now I just really like the film, whereas before I was like crazy for it. So I fully support its fresh rating on the tomato meter. It's like in the 90s. I think it was 94. And I support that completely. I got a little depressed during award season when it just won everything. Because I thought that there were so many other films that deserved recognition, and ultimately, if it's one that you or anybody listening hasn't seen, I say definitely do it.
Life of Pi.
Beautiful film, one of the most beautiful movies I've ever seen. That I recommend people see in 3D for sure. Ang Lee, I'm so happy that he won his Oscar for this movie, and I think that the lead performance by a non-actor was spectacular.
Okay, look down the road here. New summer internship movie with Owen Wilson and Vince Vaughn. Tell us, give us a feel about that one.
We've seen it.
Okay.
I mean, it's Vince Vaughn and it's Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson, and they're crashing weddings or crashing Google. It doesn't matter. Just replace the noun. It's the same film. Could be, and they're usually funny. I just think that it's kind of the law of diminishing returns.
Okay. Now You See Me.
That's coming out this weekend.
Right.
I thought it was a very creative heist movie. I really loved the performances, and they've got so many good actors and stars in the film. I think it really elevated it. I only had one small problem with it. I'm a magic nerd, and the movie requires these people to do a lot of magic tricks, but they are CG magic tricks.
Okay.
And I thought that totally ruined it, because I just wanted to see real magic on film, and that bummed me out. But I thought the movie was fun. It's just not fantastic. It's like a matinee.
Okay. We're not going to go away. We're not going to go away mad, but we're not going to go away totally fulfilled.
Right, exactly. Like there's so many people that I love in it that I think do a great job. That I enjoyed it ultimately, and I did interviews for that film, and Woody Harrelson read my mind. Talk about an uncomfortable experience.
Well, this has been a very comfortable experience, always is, but we're winding it down. Her name is Gray Drake. She's the senior editor at RottenTomatoes.com, frequent visitor and guest on this show. Gray, will you come back and join us again right before the holiday movie season kicks off?
You got it. It's a date. I'll bring the fruitcake.
I'm loving it. Okay. Hey, have a wonderful summer and wonderful fall, and we'll talk to you soon. And thanks so much for being a part of the show.
You too, Lewis. Thanks a lot.
You bet. We'll be back with more right after this on Lewis at Large.